But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Yeah, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder and I speak to bands and artists about living in a world that shouldn't have any rules. And that is exactly the kind of person we got on today's episode. From Health, we've got Jacob on the show today telling us about the band's history, from their hardcore experimental noise beginnings, their DIY scenes, and just becoming something completely else, following their instincts, going with their gut, and enjoying exploring sounds, places, coming into our homes by doing video game soundtracks, working with new tools. Health are just an incredible band. For people who like their music loud, for people who like intricacies and quieter, reflective moments, Health have just got something so special going on. Here is an exciting band that you need to know. Their new album, Rap Wars, just came out last week. I spoke with Jacob a few days before that. This weekend, they're in the UK. Tonight, they're playing in London. And on the 16th of December, they're playing with the mighty Sleep Token at the Wembley Arena. So if you can catch them, go and do it. You're not going to be disappointed. Health have just got their own thing going on in what can be a pretty homogenous music world where people think that there are particular certain train tracks or routes that you need to follow as artists, as bands. Health just fuck that all off and do their own thing, and that I am down with. If you enjoy this episode, maybe it's the first time you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs, make sure you subscribe and you get new episodes delivered straight to your phone as soon as they come out. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've had episodes with Frank Carter, Speed, The Gaslight Anthem, Kurt Vile, Mannequin Pussy, Snail Mail, Gavin Rossdale from Bush. Loads of brilliant names have been and they're coming through Christmas into the new year. Make sure you subscribe to 101 Part-Time Jobs. Make sure you subscribe to this show and get all these episodes delivered as soon as they come out. If you're able to leave a review or a rating, that would be absolutely amazing. Those ratings go far. It's like running a little cafe sometimes. Shout out to our sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival. 2000 Trees just won the award for the best medium festival in the UK for the second year running, making it 3 wins in the last 4 years. That's pretty good going. The Gaslight Anthem are headlining the Thursday night of Trees. Also playing a Manchester Orchestra, Kids in Glass Houses, Hot Mulligan, Better Lovers, and loads more still to be announced. You can get day tickets for just 65 quid. And this year they're doing evening tickets, meaning that you can get into the festival from 6 p.m, catch the biggest bands of the day, all for just 36 quid each. That's cheaper than a lot of headline shows for just one of those bands. Of course, weekend tickets are still available, and until the end of December, you can get them for 30% off, meaning you can catch bands like Creeper, Boston Manor, Cleopatra, The Excerpt, The Mysterines, and tons more. All are officially one of the UK's best festivals. I love 2000 Trees. I always go. I've been, I've seen, I've come back with a good feeling. 2000 Trees is the one to go to if you're looking for a festival in the UK to go to next year. Grab a 3-day ticket now at 2000trees.co.uk/tickets. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Eka and also Ampolo here. Ampolo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians to practice, record, and collaborate. And there's some new features coming on there, aren't there, Rebecca? You can start making money as an artist. Other artists can remix your songs. What's going on over there?
So we've heard people say before that the magic of the app is the fact that you're able to upload any music, remove your instrument and play along so you feel part of the song. I mean, there's really no feeling like it when you're playing with one of your favourite songs and you feel like you're part of that band. We have revolutionary tools which allow you to layer your audio and video recordings to share and collaborate with others in your own real-time project. And that's all thanks to our AI music separation.
All right, Ampolo, download it now. Here, right now, on 101 Part-Time Jobs, is Jacob Duzsik of Health. 101 Part-Time Jobs.
Well, there's a very distinctive moment in which there was a shift, which for us was, we came out of like a underground DIY, essentially like its own version of a punk scene based in downtown Los Angeles that we knew was pretty special. Even to this day, if you're young and you're trying to get your head around like the questions that you're asking, like how do I want to have fun and play music, but I also take it deadly seriously and I want to experience it, not just like drinking some beers in a rehearsal space and playing some music. I really highly recommend the book, Our Band Could Be Your Life.
Yeah.
I think it's a life changer. And I think that we all read it and, I had friends from where I grew up who had always been in bands. I've only ever been in one band. I've never been in another band. But I had a lot of friends from Seattle growing up that had been in bands like all through high school. And they were already in that headspace of like, oh, you guys started a band? It's like, why don't we throw down and do a split 7-inch and we'll do 500 copies and we'll just book a fucking bunch of house shows. And we had played like 3 shows ever. Mm-hmm. So we that's how we started. We just sort of dove into it. Then from there, it was just addicting. It's like, even if you play, when you're young, man, like playing in a dirt basement in Albuquerque to 5 people is like a fucking adventure.
Yeah, man.
Because then you end up crashing either at the house you played or with some fucking psycho who was actually at this show, and it's like the amount of raw life and in terms of like what's actually interesting, that's where it all happens. Once your band is bigger and it's like, oh, the festival got us a hotel, it's like, that shit's boring. Like I'm fucking old. So at this stage, I'm like, yes, I would like my own hotel room and I will get up for breakfast if there's whatever. But like, who the hell wants to hear about that shit? So if you want to dive in, like all those stories of the 2 most important music books for me growing up were Please Kill Me, the oral history of punk rock, and then Our Band Could Be Your Life. And Please Kill Me, it's like, you read that shit and you're like, okay, I can't do this. Like, all these motherfuckers are dead. They're way too gnarly. It's legendary shit, but it's just like, it's all like either New York or Detroit or like fucking English dudes who were just a product of a crazier time. And it's like, life was short and cheap and gnarly, and it's an amazing story, but like, I'm not that. I'm not that gnarly,
I see those people around. I live in an area where there's a lot of punk gigs, and you see the people that, Coxbarrow may be a bad example because they're still doing stuff and I think they sell records. You'll see people who have played in bands way before I was born, and you'll be like, oh, that's John from Conflict. He's our mate. He's a good example. And he's our pal. I don't think he'll mind me saying, he runs a practice room 50 yards from here, and they've just put the council tax up and his business might be going under. These are people who've made legendary records. They're in legendary bands. Fucking Conflict. And yet...
Yeah. I'm a massive Conflict fan. I was obsessed with Conflict when I was a kid.
Fuck yeah.
Like, started with Crass, anything Crass Records, and all the More to Hate shit. I was hugely into it. So yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting to see those people who've been so influential, maybe they didn't make a buck out of it. Definitely not in a long-term sense.
Yeah. And so I think that that reality... Fuck, it's hard to explain this to someone, when they're young, because when you're young, you just want to live and experience all that. But sometimes I see, because we have had a modicum of success and have been able to continue doing this at a professional level, I've seen both sides, and I've seen a lot of bands that just, they were 20 or 22 years old and their first record blew up, and straight out of the gate, it's like, they were playing big festivals and traveling in a nice fucking bus, and
mad to think of.
And but it's fucking boring.
Uh-huh.
It's sweet, but it's like the musical equivalent of like you graduated from uni and then it's like oh, I got this great tech job at Nike.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I buy all my food online at Whole Foods, and you're like, dope, cool. I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the next job, right? Because you know that, I know that, people listening to this will know that, who've played in bands or have been a part of a local scene or been to that local shows, because these experiences are for people going to the shows as much as people playing them, right? And we know that the joy is when we don't care about what we're doing tomorrow, and that we miss work the next day because we slept in because we were out all night. We know that there's magic in that. My question is, we're going to get older. I'm getting older, but I still want to find new things that kind of give me not exactly that same energy, because you can't recreate something that's happened and gone. But how do you keep on making those new experiences for yourself in health when you're on a bus, when you're staying at a hotel room, I mean, you're producing records from home. I mean, you tell me, but I suspect that a lot of the joy that you're getting from health and the new experiences are from the producing the records and the having fun and experimenting with each other.
So that's 100% a succinct and observant statement, because for me, everything is flipped. So it's like before, making a record was like eating your fucking vegetables, and the dessert was hitting the road and partying and getting to go all over the world and meet interesting people and stay up all night and then have an hour of sleep and have to get on the fucking ferry in Calais to go to, you know, all that stuff. And now it's swapped. So that's my job. I got to go on tour. It's like I got to work, you know, and I take it really seriously now too, in terms of wanting to have good production, like lights, present the show in a really high level way so that it's like meaningful and memorable for people. Because, you know, the memorable experiences at a DIY show is just some unhinged shit with a band playing on the floor at 3 a.m. When you get into like real venues that are more traditional, like the way it works is you just have to work with what you have. You know, you're working within the confines of the medium. And yeah, for me, the part that's kept it lively and kept me engaged is the record making, the producing music, writing music. Specifically, like I really look forward to just writing new songs, like fine tuning a song is like mostly done is like tedious because it's not creatively stimulating. If I have a realization where I go like, you know what, that fucking bridge is boring, why don't we change the chords? Then I'm back into, and I don't want to sound trite, but it's like, for me, it's all about like, you know, what is this, that stupid thing that people, it's like creativity is the biggest turn on or some shit, you know, but it's true at this stage in my life. Like I can't, you're younger than I am. Here's the one thing I will tell to you and your listeners is that every hackneyed, trite adage about getting old that you hear when you're growing up is fucking true. Everything is true. And the reason is because it's like, it's the most battle tested, largest sample size studies in history. Just fucking old guys being like, youth is wasted on the young. You only have your health. You blah, blah. It's like all this shit you hear when you're like 22 and you're like, whatever. And then you get older and you're like, the days go so and the years go so fast. It's like, it's all true. And so for me being in a band, getting older, it's like, yeah, the creativity, the writing, the making the records, that's the juice, baby. That's how I stay engaged. And especially because I got a family. So it's like leaving is way more complicated.
Your decisions are also their decisions.
Yes, exactly.
Gen Z, I was reading a thing yesterday. What's 2024 trends? You know, I run a business. I run the production company that does this. I'm like, what are 2024 trends? What are the buzzwords? And one of the big things is that Gen Z, they move jobs more than any generation that's come before us. And I feel like you and I, our generations are probably the first two generations that have probably felt like they've been able to just quit their career mid-30s, mid-40s and do a totally new vocation. I feel like for our parents and our grandparents, that just wasn't even a thing. So in the light of that kind of makes entertainment and like what we do and the options that are available, I guess tech is a huge part of it. Tech acceleration. I read that too. You know, the kind of options that we have are kind of getting wider and wider and wider, which is overwhelming more than anything.
Yeah, but I also wonder, my first thought when you say that is it's like overlay that graph plotting with how many of those motherfuckers that live at home with their parents too. You know what I mean?
It's true. But no one could afford to buy houses.
That's the thing.
No one could afford to. Even if they do, the normal the wages in London, I think they're like 30 grand. And that to me is good. You cannot buy a house or get a mortgage with that.
Oh, I mean, obviously the US and England are very different, but they're a lot more similar than like we had a war and all that shit, but like we're a commonwealth. Like there's a lot of things that are, one of the big ways is like you're kind of on your own shit, you know, and it's like things are sort of harsh. And the American dream because obviously we're not as class conscious historically, but the American dream of like have a middle class to lower middle class, working class job and buy a home for your family, that's been dead for fucking decades. Like it's impossible. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's like, it's something that I think that you're right though. Like our generations, like my family, the idea that you would even get to take into account like, well, I don't want to do that job. I don't like that job. Like, yeah, what do you mean you don't like your job? It's a fucking job. Shut up.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. Yeah.
Like I remember like when I was younger, I had some job, you know, like some like manual labor sort of thing, or maybe I was working in an office and I remember complaining about some shit. And my dad he stopped me like mid-sentence and he was like, Jake, don't ever talk about work unless you're at work.
Yeah.
He's like, you're off work. And my dad is like a lifelong, he never had a career. He just worked jobs and his life, and he's been an extremely happy person and his life unfolded on the fucking weekend and after work. Go to the bar with your friends, go to a show. It's the weekend, go skiing, go camping, go whatever. But I just remember it was, I've never forgotten it, how definitive it was to me of just being like, don't fucking waste a breath complaining about work unless you're at work. He's like, if you're at work, fucking complain all you want. Like that's how you get through the day. But he's like, once you're gone, free your goddamn mind. And I think that it's funny that you bring up Zoomers because we look at these Zoomer kids and it's like, oh man, these kids, you know, they're so tethered to their phones that they never have known what it's like not to be so sort of crushingly addicted to these technological devices. But the irony is that we all are too. It doesn't like,
of course we are.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing all our banking. We're like paying the bills. We're booking everything that we're booking the restaurant tonight or walking the dog. We're texting each other. Have you done this? Have you done that? You can't get away from it.
And the fucked up thing is just sort of the truth of it is that it's, if you wanted to go all crazy and be like, oh, fuck it, I got a flip phone. You know what I mean? It's like, because of the way modern life has progressed, it puts you in this strange, like it would, either you are fucking Unabomber or your friends are hugely inconvenienced. It's like, yeah, we try to get a hold of him. I can't get a hold of him.
Yeah.
So
I did it last Saturday. I had that thing. I was like, I'm getting kind of square eyes. I'm getting that kind of like low-lying headache. I'm going to have a day off the phone. Within 2 hours, my girlfriend was like, and this isn't her fault, you know, this is the way we are, is that she was like, I fucking texted you if you wanted anything from the shops because I was going to make you lunch. And now I don't know what to do. So it's kind of like, it's like it immediately inconvenienced both of us, you know?
I mean, dude, I have a kid, so it's impossible to, on a band level, it's like if I need to respond to an email and my manager is like, he'll just be like, hey, I emailed you. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I was at the park. I don't, you know,
yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. Or like my bandmate, you know, because everybody's used to, and I'm guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
But with the kid in the equation, it's fucking impossible because now, like with my partner, it's like the other day, there's a lot of stairs to my house. I was taking my kid to the park and I left my phone all the way upstairs. And I was just like, fuck it, dude. I'm not going back up there to get my phone. Like, we're just going to the park. And she must have seen my phone in the kitchen or something. She comes down and she's like, oh, you left your phone. And I was like, oh, I know, you know. And she's like,
yeah.
Well, you know, I just like you to have it like for safety issues. And I'm like, I totally understand. Like if she left the house with our kid and then was gone for hours and her phone was just on the counter, I'd be fucking freaking out. Cause it's like, but it's just so funny that there's all these ways that we all grew up that was the absolute everyday, quotidian existence. And it's like, that just seems like a goddamn emergency now.
Yeah.
And I just think it's funny, you know? So it's like, I can't, man, it's hard. It's a double-edged sword because, you know, we're on your podcast.
Yeah. It wouldn't be possible without the technology.
Yeah. It's like, and it's so, one thing that I've just found to be so true for me is it's like, I'm okay at abstinence from things. Like if I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like I don't eat fucking gluten anymore or whatever. It's like, I'm not taking painkillers anymore, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But when it's like little bit, like when you're supposed to moderate, it's so fucking hard.
Yeah.
Hey, use your phone, but just don't look at social media. Like the best thing that for me was like, I deleted Instagram, Twitter, everything from my phone, but then I don't know what the fuck was going on in my band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's just it's hard.
Hey, so what was your crossover from like, did you work normal jobs coming out of school, and were you also playing music then? What was the kind of, because I feel like there are two main columns here. There's like actually like what's going on and like what's bringing in cash, and the second column is your identity. And it doesn't have to be existential, but it's an everyday identity. People identify, people are skateboarders. Skateboarding's a big one, or BMXers. You play in bands, it's an identity. You write, you're an artist, you make stuff, that's an identity. When I say that, what does it make you think of?
Oh yeah, my identity is as a musician. Unquestionably. Definitely, I've been extraordinarily fortunate enough to, for the last many years, have that be my job. It's not a fantastically stable job. There's no 401k, there's no benefits, there's no health insurance. There's all kinds of things that make it difficult. But I think that it's pretty much what I wanted to do. So I'm in a very, very small percentage of people that like, I actually get to do exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely we're the kind of band that like, yeah, we all like, I was talking about playing fucking house shows and booking them online back in the MySpace days. It's like, we all had jobs that you just had to figure out. Like, I think we all sort of trended towards filtering down to jobs that would let us leave, because you end up at a job where you're like, hey, we can't have you leaving for 6 weeks. And it's like, well, then I'm going to have to quit. And then when I get back, I'll try to find another job. And you kind of go through some different iterations of it until you land somewhere where, like, my bandmate John, like, he did temp job work. And so and then sometimes he'd get like laid off and he'd get unemployment, and that was great for touring,
Yeah.
Our drummer had two different long-standing jobs. One was at an antique center. He just like worked in an antique center.
Yeah.
And they were fucking mellow about him going on tour. And then later on, he was a bouncer at like a prominent bar in LA,
Hey,
it's just like
from antique store to bouncer. That's a good one.
Yeah. And then, so like I had a job in the earlier touring heavy years of the band at this orthopedic surgeon's office where I would interview patients. It was like workers' compensation shit. It was like, the doctor I worked for was considered a medical expert. So if someone got hurt at work and then they were like, hey, I need back surgery, and then their insurance carrier for the work was like, no, you don't. So then they go get a lawyer, and the lawyer is like trying to sue. It's like, what the guy I worked for, he was like an arbitrator. He wasn't involved with either side. So like he doesn't get any money if the case goes through, and he doesn't work for the company. So it was like, at least I didn't feel like I was part of some gross complex of like whether or not ambulance chasing or fucking people over for insurance companies. But anyway, it was just like a job that took a lot of time to train for. I wrote these legal reports that went to fucking law firms, and I'm fluent in Spanish. So I did like a lot of the interviews were with Central American and Mexican workers. And so it was like, it was a bitch for them to find new people.
You got your niche.
So they could, because it was like the kind of job where it took like 3 or 4 months before they could really tell if someone was going to be able to do it very well. Right. And so they would just, and it paid pretty well. Like I made like a really good, like there was a lot of dudes who got stuck in that like as a lifer kind of thing. Because it was like compensation was good. Yeah. Benefits were good, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for years, I would just be like, hey, I got to go on tour for 4 weeks. And they'd be like, fuck, all right. They had the staff to sort of accommodate me leaving.
Yeah.
And then when I was talking about that scene we came out of that was really special, we kind of thought, and we were right, that we hit this moment where all of a sudden that scene and this particular venue that we were a part of got all this international music press attention. And, you know, it was right around the time we were finishing a debut record. And so that was sort of in this pitchfork indie world sphere. And that kind of blew everything up. And all of a sudden it's like, and we had some other shit that was already like popping on the internet, you know, like in the back of the internet days of like that band Crystal Castles did a...
And you'd recorded that album at that venue.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. For free. They let us do it there for free. So that...
What's the name of it? Sorry, the name just escapes my mind.
The Smell. Yeah. So that moment happened, and then it was like, okay, like we have a booking agent in Europe and one in the US, and it's like, hey, do you guys want to play Primavera Festival in Spain? Do you want to play this festival? Blah, blah. It's like, we're going to book you a fucking, our first European tour, we played like 62 shows in 58 days or something. And we're fucked up the entire time. Like it would literally kill me now. Like I would die.
Wow.
And it was sort of like, we went on tour for like 6 months straight. And so we all quit our jobs and all moved out of our apartments, put our shit in storage. I think maybe one person kept a place, and it was just like, fuck it, dude. Like, cause the great thing on tour is that you don't really spend any money, you know, like usually booze is free. Maybe you spend some money on some drugs. You don't, like, you crash on floors, or a festival will get you a hotel, and then hopefully like a per diem for some food or the, you know, whatever, like bare minimum. You're like, I had to buy a sandwich and I'm not paying rent. So it's like, we all came home. We've always sold a lot of t-shirts for some reason. So it's like, we'd always come home with money.
Yeah.
So it was just like, all right, fucking dirtbag it. Let's just like be on tour, just on tour as much as you can.
Yeah.
And, you know, like if there's any advice I would give to anyone who, if its band actually starts doing something, and you're out all the time, it's like, don't fucking live in London or New York or LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
nice.
Be on tour 10 months a year and live in like, where the fuck you'd live there that's cheap, like Hull, I don't know.
Yeah,
or like if you're in the US, like
it's accurate.
Iowa or some shit, just have some apartment. But you know what I mean? Just live somewhere that's like not cool.
Yeah. Where does it come into the equation when you started writing soundtracks and you started getting commissioned for video games? When does that come into play?
2011, I think, is when we first got contacted by Rockstar Games. And then that was like, you know, that's a very atypical arc to the story. And that's some full on like real life job, high level shit that we had especially when we look back on it now, it's fucking insane. Like we were like a noise band, full on noise band. And then just did the entire original soundtrack for like a Rockstar Games title that sold millions of copies. So
how much of a surprise was that?
Complete shock. There was it changed all of our lives forever, because it, not just monetarily, but you know, it made the band, like now we have such a huge connection to gaming culture. And it's been like one of the ways that we've really stayed active and growing is through that. And that's all a result of that beginning of working in that space.
Yeah.
So yeah, that scoring work and scoring work, you know, like I live in LA, like I've done scoring work that's not credited to the band, because I have a lot of friends, you know, that I went to college with, or I've known since I was in my early 20s, that are in the, like, they're big commercial editors, or they're film and TV editors and whatever. And it's like having those kind of connections, like you could be like low level scoring shit, and if you're working consistently, you would make way more money than someone who's in a really big band. Like being in a band is a terrible business model. It's just, it always has been, because historically it wasn't until the Beatles that any sort of, there was any idea of any legitimacy to like a long running career, and the idea of having like a publishing catalog that could sustain anything. and as such, like the industry that grew up around music is just, there's just so many ways that you lose money. It's just really hard.
And virtually every band ever has signed a contract that's bitten them in the ass.
Yeah. And so
it seems like,
yeah, I mean, like there's the famous apocryphal story of like Black Sabbath plays whatever giant fucking festival and they got paid like £200,000 in the 70s, you know, like an astronomical sum. And they each made like 500 quid personally. And as a result, they sued their management and their label and they lost.
You know?
Yeah. Because they had fucking signed some shit that was like, oh yeah, well, you agree to this. So, and obviously it doesn't have to be that bad, but yeah, in terms of day jobs, like I really prefer being in a band, but scoring work, and obviously there's a big debate now because of AI. Everyone's like, oh, they're just going to use, and honestly, everything is always in flux. When I was saying about not having a fucking 401k or whatever, that kind of shit, when you work for yourself, as you well know, your ass is just in the wind. So like right now, dude, there's no scoring work. There's no sync work because
of the strikes.
That industry here has been like shut down so even now that production is starting to ramp back up, there's no loose cast depositories. There's no like loose, no one's like, no one's putting out that next fucking Netflix show. And they're like, oh, I like that song. Let's pay them $30,000 for it. They're like, fuck that.
Yeah.
So it's all, everything's always unstable.
Talking about Rockstar Games, I mean, take me through that process of getting that call and then the next few months and then what your timeline became. Because, I mean, presumably looking back on it now and present and future, it's like you got two strands as Health. You're the band that plays music and you tour and you make records. And you've also got this, seems like reliable stream of creativity and income with gaming.
I don't know about reliable. I wish it was a little bit more reliable. It's like a feast or famine kind of thing. It seems like when one thing happens, it's a domino effect, and like we just get a bunch of work, and then there's just dry spells. But at the same time, we haven't. There was a real moment, and I'll address your questions more linearly. But there was a moment when the Max Payne 3 score came out where we were like, "Is this a pivot? Like, do we want to go back and play 300 cap club shows? Or do we just try to because we had a manager at the time that was like a dear friend of ours. And he was like, hey, like there's a lot of fucking interest. Like the reviews particularly for the score of that game were very, very favorable. So it was like, there's production companies that like want you to work with them. It could have been like, are we trying to just find a scoring agent and get off the road? And I know bands that have done that and have made much more stable, lucrative lives for themselves. But at the same time, we got into this thing wanting to be in a band. So, and that's what we really value. But the timeline of it was like, we had no idea that we were going to do the entire score. The original conversation, we were in New York playing a show at a skate park. And it was like, hey, Rockstar Games wants to take you guys to dinner. And we were like, what the fuck? Okay, maybe they just want to put a song in GTA because GTA has hundreds of songs, thousands of songs, so that's possible. It's like, I don't know if they would take us to dinner. And, the music department at that company is extremely small, given the scale of it, given the fact that they handle the most lucrative entertainment property of all time. It's really just like two dudes in the music department. And they become like family to us. Like they're extremely close friends to this day. And they're very music literate, tasteful, not corporate people, basically. And so they would always keep their finger on the pulse of like interesting stuff that's going on. And so they were like, hey, we're doing this, our reboot of Max Payne. It's extremely dark, and they had an existing score that was done by a prominent Brazilian composer. The game takes place in Brazil, and it's not that they were unhappy with his work, and he's gone on to have a very, very good career as a film scorer. But they felt like when the game got really intense and it goes like run and gun, like there's 30 fucking people trying to kill you, they wanted to sort of kick up the intensity musically there. And they just sort of asked us if we would audition for that. Like, you know, we'll send you some video captures, and just when all hell breaks loose, you know, we want some of your sort of kinetic, strange, noisy music to sort of ratchet up the stress. And this was a very calculated move on our part, but we were, you know, all these games now, they work on like, I mean, it depends on there's different games, but there's STEM systems, right? So it's like in the coding of what's happening on the gaming level, it's cueing different types of music. It's not like it used to be where it's just like, there's just one song and it just fucking plays, right? Yeah. And those stems don't exist. And I think they might even be migrating away from that to something even more complex, like almost like a digital audio workface kind of system that's proprietary within the game. I can't speak as to how all these companies do this kind of stuff. But when we were doing Max Payne 3, it was sort of this transitional moment of multi-stem music cues, but not stems broken down like remixes, like, okay, here's guitar, bass, and drums. It's like any number of things. It could have guitars, drums, whatever, and they all can come in and out. And for the most part, they all need to be able to play at the same time.
I see.
If necessary, like everything could infinitely sort of recombine. Mm-hmm. So we just found that in trying to do it, it was like we're adding our own music on top of someone else's aesthetic, and it just didn't really work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine like if someone's scoring in conjunction together, as does happen, that's one thing. But if you had a John Williams score and then like some Hans Zimmer Inception thing comes in over this fucking Brahms or like Mozart sounding thing that sounds hyper modern and electronic, it could be a bit of a train wreck. We felt like we were in, not that we're comparing ourselves to those kind of artists, but so we just calculatedly and ambitiously, we were like, okay, so there's all these different moods to one level of like there's suspense when you're just walking down a hallway, and there's sort of ambient music going and you don't know what's going to happen yet, to like, you know, and there's, is it at night? Is it in an urban setting? Is it whatever? Yeah. We took one level and we were like, hey, we're having trouble blending our aesthetic with the existing score. This is what it would look like if we did this whole level.
Right.
And they were just like, all right, you're redoing the whole game score.
Wow.
Which was pretty crazy.
Wow. They asked you for something small and you gave them something big and they said, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Exactly. I mean, and that's one of the most incredible things working in that space, because, you know, the video gaming world has so much more money than the music world. Is fucking crazy. So it's like anything that you would get up against in the music world of like, well, we have this deadline, we need to like, they're especially, I mean, my main experiences is with Rockstar games. So, you know, their commitment is to trying to make things good. And so they have the resources to be like, oh, well, this is way better with this music. Even if it delays the game 8 months or something coming out, like we're just going to redo it because it's worth more to us to have it be right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like if you're doing an indie film, you can't fucking do that shit.
Yeah.
You know, like you just gotta get it out. Hopefully a festival will play it, and then maybe you can direct like some shitty Marvel movie like that. Yeah. That's like the best case scenario. So yeah, they just took a chance on us.
Awesome.
And then it took like 14 months of work. And it was like, you know, we had 2 albums to our name, each album of which was about, I think the first album was 29 minutes long, and the second album was like 31 or something. But, you know, we were like, Stooges Funhouse, it's like fucking 30 minutes. That's all you need. So we had like an hour of music under our belt in our career. Mm. And as they say, you have your lifetime to make your first record and you have 2 years to make your second one. This was like, oh, hey, you need to write like 6 hours of music for this game. It's just like, it made us grow up as musicians and as a band, and being accountable to like a real fucking company and people that take their jobs seriously. Yeah. And there are repercussions if you don't do something right. So that was just hugely a transformative moment, especially looking back on it. Like, it's fucking insane that they let our jank ass band do that score and had that confidence in us.
Awesome.
And so it really like, that sort of just changed. It changed the entire trajectory of the band.
Fuck yeah. What a story. Hey, Jake, thanks so much for this is great. I mean, love these stories. This is exactly what the show's about. I mean, what a brilliant thing to happen, because things are always happening. Like, you know, the way that maybe 15 years ago, no video game would have asked a band to do the soundtrack. That it kind of blows open the doors in my mind of creativity and collaboration, and now's the time of collaboration, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, I think that, like, if you asked the music supervisor, our good friend Ivan Pavlovich at Rockstar Games, like, you know, I think he feels like that score had a big effect on further collaborative scoring in the video game world, sort of changing that. And then now, you look at, like, that's one of the things that is so cool about how interconnected everybody is on their phones, is it's made the idea of collaboration, you know, that used to sort of exist in the hip hop world. You had like a lot of features and things weren't so precious as it is in like rock music. But for a lot, especially like the shit we were talking about, like the sort of punk ethos, DIY, our band could be your life. It's like the idea of creative ownership was like a sacrosanct sort of thing, and letting anybody in that room was seen as as it being devalued. And I think that that's actually really negative creatively, because the whole goal in collaboration, unless you're just doing it as some sort of like marketing ploy, if it's like some big ass artist, but that's not the way we're doing it, is just trying to make something stronger creatively, trying to make it more effective.
Yeah.
And having the perspective on
Making interesting stuff.
Yeah, having the perspective on it of like, who fucking cares who does what or who writes what or who records what, so long as the end product is more engaging to the people that hear it or see it or play it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that was that's a huge lesson that we've taken from scoring when we work on collaborative things rather than just our own songs, is you know, you're in service to a greater whole.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be like you don't need to be the squeaky wheel of like, oh no, I really want you to pay attention to the music here. I just want the thing to be better. And I think that extends to collaborations too, of if you're doing a collaborative song with another artist, if your mentality is going to be like, well, I need to be the loudest voice in like, occasionally that can yield something. Like, if you look at collaboration in classic rock, is this is not very much there. But like the most famous one would be like Under Pressure, you know, that one works because Bowie and
Aerosmith, Run DMC.
Yeah, but that's a little different because it's like an existing song. But Under Pressure, it's like they're just trying to outdo each other the entire song. Yeah. And obviously Bowie can't outsing Freddie Mercury, but that's why the song has like 8 fucking hooks. And it's like almost just like so over the top, because it's like you just have these 2 huge personalities that they're used to being like, I'm the guy. But mostly that doesn't work.
Hey, Under Pressure, is that an original by the Police? Or was that written by Queen and Bowie?
I'm pretty sure it was written by Queen and Bowie, and then famously repurposed by Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
I think it's pre-formation of the Police.
Who wrote Under Pressure?
Yeah, it's Bowie and Queen.
Oh yeah, it is. Damn, I never knew. 81.
You know, the cool thing about the Police is it's like they were all like shredder, local, like gigging dudes that hadn't made it, and they were like, fuck, maybe we like get some fucking dyed hair and do some of this new wave shit. You know, they were older. Yeah. That's why they shred, dude. Like Stuart Copeland's playing, and then Andy Summers' like guitar playing is crazy good. It's like, but they were not part of punk scene. It was totally just like, oh, let's see what these kids are doing.
Yeah.
You know, and it fucking worked.
If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Jacob, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to Health coming over to the UK. Looking forward to the new album. That's all exciting stuff. I like asking people, just to finish these off, I like asking people for their biggest work mistake memory. I mean, Lord knows that I've had my mistakes at work. First day errors, embarrassing things, spilling stuff, breaking stuff. Does anything immediately come to mind?
Day job or band job?
Day job.
Day job. Yeah, let me think. I definitely got some.
Or either. I mean, depends how good.
No, I got some good ones for sure. I used to get really drunk at lunch at work when I worked at that doctor's office. And I remember one time I had this little office and I was supposed to be writing this report in, and I was sleeping off 8 beers from lunch or something. And the doctor that I worked for, the actual doctor, he never came into anywhere near that side of the office. But for some reason, the climate control was in there, and that's where you had to adjust it. But it was offices it's the same settings every day. No one's oh, I'm a little cold. It's just this is the temperature. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was just fucking hot that day in his office, but completely out of nowhere, never would happen normally. He comes into my office, and I'm passed out with my feet up on the desk and my mouth wide open. And it must have just stank like booze. and I kind of come to and he looks at me are you fucking kidding me? And it was one of those moments where it's all you could do was own it. So I just sort of looked at him and did the hey with my hands. It's ah. And he just shook his head at me and walked out, and we never spoke of it again. So that was probably that was a big one for me.
So there he was, Jacob Duzsik of Health, here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. I loved that chat. I really got out of that about how you can start in a DIY scene, start playing these weird, visceral shows and be part of this community. And that feeling of community never goes away. It never dies. You don't turn your back on that community, but you grow with it and from it. You keep in touch with people, and then to take an opportunity to soundtrack and score Rockstar games. I mean, that's just a once in a lifetime thing, isn't it? Great to hear those stories. Great to speak with Jacob. I hope that you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you click subscribe so you get more episodes through to your phone as soon as I press publish on them. If you're able to leave a review or rate it, I'd massively appreciate that too. That puts us up the chart, means that we can keep on getting more excellent people onto the show. This week's a very special one. Olivia Swash has edited this show for the first time. Thank you, Olivia. Idols, the sold out show we've got coming up in January. That's sold out now, but we've still got tickets for Bob Vylan, which is happening on Sunday, the 7th of April. Just a few days after their new album, Humble as the Sun, comes out. I'll be speaking on stage with Bobby Vylan at Signature Brew up in Black Horse Road. Make sure you snag a ticket for that if you're able to join. 101parttimejobs.com/live is the best place to do that. Thanks to Tom and Eva for sorting out the website. It's looking good. Cheers, everyone. See you soon.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.